Welcome to the Called by God podcast with Rodson Sanat, Adnie Gaudin, and myself, Nixon Sylvain. This show is about dialogues of biblical characters and testimonies of Christians who submitted to the will of God. Each week, we'll bring on one guest so that they can share their story of how they were called by God. I hope this show inspires you. Enjoy.
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. You are now listening to Called by God podcast, and I'm your host, Rodson Sanat, and my other host,
Nixon Silvani. They call me Nixon Sylvain, though.
And today, folks, we're definitely going to be sitting down with our lovely sister in Christ, and we're going to introduce her as
Adnie Gaudin.
Adnie Gaudin. Adnie Gaudin. You know, we're going to have to redo that. We got to bring in our sister. Like, bring her in.
Adnie Gaudin.
Adnie Gaudin. So, Adnie Gaudin, since you mentioned your name, tell the world a little bit about yourself before we dive into your journey.
What am I? I'm an orphan, in all honesty, in all retrospect of the word. I lost my father in 2012, but I lost my mother in 1986. Technically, I grew up an orphan because my father didn't want to have anything to do with me. And those are the things that kind of shaped who I am and who I was becoming, which was a mean and nasty person. But by the grace and mercy of God, God saw something in me, and He knew, like, that's not who I created you to be. I did not create you to be this nasty person, because my tongue is as sharp as a knife, and God had to tame.
So we're up for a story.
Yes,
I mean, from an orphanage, and she's a future author. She's in various ministries. I mean, so we're in for a treat.
Yes,
the world is in for a treat.
Absolutely. So Annie, without further ado, take us back to the beginning of your childhood, and we're going to sit back and be the audience today.
Oh, okay. So, I'm not a native of the U.S. I am from the Bahamas. I was born there. I wasn't raised there. I came here literally on a boat in 1980. I was born in 79. No, I came in 79. I'm sorry. My mother, the beautiful soul that she was, saw this lady hemorrhaging under a tree in the Bahamas, and she took her in and started caring for her. And she wanted me to come to the U.S. So she, what she did was she paid for her way on the boat, and she told her to come to the U.S. with me. So technically, the reason this lady is here in the United States of America is because my mother paid for her, cared for her, and paid for her to come here. So when I came here, I was about 9 months old, and my mother was still in the Bahamas with my siblings.
So in other words, you came to U.S. soil.
Yeah.
With another individual that your mom was caring for at the time, and your mother decided to stay and raise your other siblings. So it's almost like the story of Moses in a sense, putting you into the basket, going into the water, and to the land of the free. Wow, that's powerful.
That honestly, let me tell you, when I hear this story, and I'm gonna share it with y'all, they almost threw me overboard. And that lady started crying. She said, look, her mother paid for me to be on this boat. You are not throwing her overboard.
Fighting for you in a sense.
If you going to throw her overboard, you're going to have to throw me overboard.
Wow.
And of course, they was like, nah, this was some serious money that my mother paid for her to come with me here. So when I hear that story, I'm like, wow. So when Brother Nick asked me about Called by God, I'm like, wow, it started since I was a baby, because, Satan didn't want me here because I was in open waters, shark food. And God said, no, I'm going to use this lady to open her mouth and say, you will not throw this child overboard. And that is something that, God literally just revealed that to me just now,
Yes, me too. Me too. As you talking to me too, Sister Adnie, I'm like,
wow.
Oh, I mean, that's the Mosaical story right there.
So
it is.
came here. I was in the Krome Detention Center. So that typical story of, when people come from another country, that the government takes them, put them in the Krome Detention Center. Yes, I was there, diapers being changed in there, everything. People that see me later on in life are like, do you remember me? And I'm like, am I supposed to? And I'm like, I was changing your diapers in the Krome. And I'm like,
oh my goodness.
Wow. I was a baby
captivity.
Then. So that's part of the journey of me, because you start from an infant to a journey of my mother coming to the United States. Now we're living in 6th Street in Overtown. I grew up in Overtown.
Wow.
My mother was a very loved woman. I didn't know much about her, but I remember, how giving, loving, and compassionate she was. So while we were living in Overtown, if you see I have a scar over my nose, we were moving from one apartment to the next, and our door wasn't good. So my mom was like, okay, let's just take our old door and put it on the new door. And my sister was holding the door, it was too heavy. And that's how I got the scar. Wow. But the beautiful part about that scar is that my mother was there to nurse me through it. My mother was, she was a heart. She was the heart. She was my heart. So God knew that.
There's a lot of significance in your story early on, Adnie, being put onto a boat as an infant, crossing over the specific, ocean all the way to American soil. And then, you talk about a scar that you have on your nose because of a door that your mother was talking about. You can see the spiritual significance of a door that she was moving from one place to another. And that door that she took off, she took it with her. And that same door, landed on your face, that God was opening doors for you early on.
Yeah.
That's powerful stuff.
So once we left Overtown, we moved to Fort Lauderdale. We used to live on, that area is called Six Trunk. We used to live in that area. And that's where my mother got sick. Now, Samantha shared with us earlier about, the spiritual realm. My mother got sick through voodooism. When I tell people that, they're like, oh, no. Look, I'm telling y'all. Okay, this was a woman who, my mother was about 6'1", 6'2", and she had 3 children here in the U.S., my brother Gilbert, myself, and my sister. And my mother was a chef. She cooked. She used to cook and sell food. And one night we went into her room and my mother was sweating profusely, like water was just drenching out of her. And this was in, 1986. I was 7 years old. I was about 7 years old when this happened.
Okay. So you can kind of experience that moment all over again, seeing your mother slumped over, sweat coming down, having a difficult time breathing. How was that for you? Was it traumatizing for you as a child?
That was one of the hardest things for me. I try not to remember too much about it, but that was a hard time for me. I was a mama's girl.
Yeah, I can
And when
imagine.
I tell y'all I was a mama's girl, I was a mama's girl. Okay. I showered with mommy. Okay. So imagine. I was a mama's girl. But when she got sick, it was like half of me was gone. So when she got sick, we called, one of our relatives that came down and it was like, okay, we need to take her to the hospital. When they took my mother to Jackson Memorial Hospital, my mother went into that hospital walking. My mother left that hospital paralyzed. Wow. And the doctors were like, we don't get it because there's nothing wrong with her. Right. She's healthy. But the thing that people don't understand about the spiritual realm is that demonic forces, when they take over your body, like, that woman who was slumped over and Jesus says, woman, thou art loose. That was a situation for my mother. My mother was entrapped by a demonic force. Like, we would touch her body and I can remember my mother screaming in agony and in pain. Right. And we didn't understand it. My grandmother, who was a voodoo priestess in Haiti, said, look, if my child is going to die, I would rather her die in Haiti than in this country where I can't reach her. So, of course, they paid the ticket, sent my mother to Haiti. When my mother got to Haiti, she got worse, and then she got better. And this is where the story kind of takes a tip, because I remember speaking to my mother. She called me. They called me baby, literally. My name was Baby. She called me. She said, baby, I'm coming home soon. I can walk again. I can feel again, because she lost all sense of feeling.
Right.
And the next day we get a call, my mother is dead. And I'm like, how do I talk to her today? And then the next day she's gone. Right.
And you were 7, right? 7 years old.
7 years old.
7 years old. Yeah.
Like this year would have made my mother 70 years. This would have been her August 21st would have been my mother's 70th birthday. My mother died at the age of 36.
Wow.
That was 34 years ago. So that the story of my mother is one of those things that I sit back. I was mad at God. Like, how dare you take? Like, I was mad at God because my mother, the one thing I loved about her, even though she didn't go to church every Sunday, you best believe my brother, my sister, and myself would be on somebody's van going to somebody's worship service.
Right.
So we had a semblance of a relationship with God.
It sounds like your mother still had reverence for God.
She
still, feared God in a sense to know that though that I choose to go a different path, I will make sure that my children get the nourishment in the word of God and send them off. And
that was her. That like what you just said was my mother.
Right.
And every Sunday Bible studies we went, somebody was picking us up. So at the age of 7, I was mad at God because that was my life. I knew that things would change because you go from being spoiled to becoming Cinderella. And I mean that and if anybody knows anything about the Haitian culture,
absolutely.
When you don't have parents and relatives have to raise you, you become Cinderella.
Right.
You become the cook. You become the butler.
That is
correct. You become the maid. You do the laundry. You do everything.
That is correct.
Like I learned how to cook full course Haitian meals by the time I was 10 years old.
Wow.
And if anybody knows, it's a long time to be in that kitchen cooking the Haitian meal.
That's correct. That's true. Especially with large families in that time frame. You're talking about the early 80s and mid 80s. Yeah, so, the household was at least 8-9 people per home.
Exactly.
In that time. So, yeah, that's correct.
So I learned how to cook before I was 10. When my mother passed away, the lady that came with me, she went to go apply for her green card. Guess who she forgot to tell them people that, she wasn't my mother because she put on the immigration document that she was my mother. So when she went to apply for her green card, immigration was like, hold up, how are you going to apply for your green card and you're not applying for your child? What's up? So she almost got in trouble. So she came to my aunt and told my aunt, hey, look, I need to apply for her green card as well so I won't get in trouble. And this is where the plot thickens, y'all. I go and live with this lady. I've never experienced abuse like that in my whole entire life, but with this woman. Every day. Whooping. If she came home and her food wasn't cooked, I got beat. If the bathroom wasn't clean the way she liked it, I got beat. If I breathe, I got beat. I got beat, y'all. And it wasn't spankings. They were beatings. Okay. It got to the point where, and again, I'm still mad at God here because she used to take me to church with her. Right. So how can I be going to church with her and I'm being treated like this? Like that doesn't add up for me. You understand what I'm saying? Like, how can you be such a loving God? And this is what I'm learning, but I'm being beat in a form where I felt like I wanted to die. The only solace I got was my aunt gave her a picture of my mother. And I remember that picture because my mother loved taking pictures. She was wearing a navy blue suit. Her hair was down. She had very long hair, and my mother was dark skinned. And whenever she would beat me, I would take that picture and I would cry. And I'm like, if you were here, this would never happen to me.
Oh, wow.
And that's what kind of comforted me through the beatings. And then one day she saw me do that and she took the picture and she ripped it. So she ripped my mother out of my life twice.
Stay with us. We'll be right back.
Thank you for making it midway through this episode. We want to take a moment to sincerely thank each and every one of you who have been supporting our show. Your encouragement and positive feedback mean the world to us. We want to continue to bring you inspiring and thought-provoking content each week, and that's where we need your help. We kindly ask you to support our podcast by clicking on the link provided in the description below. Your support will enable us to grow, reach a wider audience, and continue to produce the quality content you enjoy. We truly appreciate your support and value your contribution to the Call by God podcast. Together, let's inspire and uplift others in their faith journey. Thank you once again for your continued support, and we look forward to bringing you more enlightening episodes in the future. God bless.
So you got a chance to experience the enemy in physical form early on.
Yes.
Who God has.
Yes, Brother Rodson. When I tell you, when I hear children talk about abuse and how they were beat, I can never say they're lying because I know what that's like.
Personally
Satan knows how to break us at a young age, especially when he knows that, hey, there's a calling on this person's life and I cannot allow them to reach the potential that God, has placed in them because he sees it. Right. And that was one of those things for me with her. Her sister is the one that saved me. Her sister went to my aunt and said, if you value your niece's life, you will take her from my sister. Because if not, you're going to bury her.
Wow.
Like
she spoke on your behalf.
Yeah.
Which be like a messenger like Ananias, calling Saul or whatnot. Speaking on your behalf to kind of spare you because God knew that, he only could put so much on you that you can bear at that age and that season in your life. What you see, the hand of God again.
Yeah.
So I know, Adnie, you spoke about your childhood, but let's make a transition. Let's pivot. Okay, so what was your life like as a young adult? And how did you figure out that God's call was on your life?
So y'all all know I have a 26-year-old daughter. Mm-hmm. I had her at the age of 14.
Amazing person, by the way.
Thank you.
She is great personality.
But if I had my choice, and I'm being honest, she wouldn't be here. But God knew the fruit of my womb was his child. It had nothing to do with me.
Right.
He needed that soul here, so he utilized me in that retrospect. Her dad is 10 years older than me, so I was 14 and he was 24. And
which is the common thing, Adnie, was like, were you in the islands or you were here?
No, this was here in the U.S.
Oh, wow. Because it is a common thing in the island where most older guys would, target young women. But to be here in the U.S., not to say it doesn't happen here, but, it's highly known. In the islands. In the islands, yeah.
Yeah. Of course, he's Haitian. But what happened was he was a sense of I call him a means to an end because my aunt had just kicked me out of her home.
Okay.
And she took her name off of all of my documents at school. So she was trying to take my education away from me.
Wow.
And he was like, no, you're a 14-year-old. You cannot be staying home and you can't go to school. So he said, I'm going to do everything in my power to make sure you go to school. In the same process, things happen that adults do.
Absolutely.
And I got pregnant with my daughter. So I was in middle school when I got pregnant with my daughter.
Okay.
A lot of times when I tell people that I was a teen mom, the first thing that comes to their mind is, oh, you're fast. And I say to them, you don't even know my story. If you would like, I would share my story with you. But the fact that you think I'm fast, I don't even think I want to share my story with you because I'm coming from a life of, I didn't have a mom raising me. Yes, I had relatives, but they weren't the ideal for a young woman. Because again, remember in the beginning, I said I suffer from low self-esteem.
Right.
It's because my aunt, my name was never used. It was other terms. And those terms were tearing at the fabric of my spirit. They were tearing me apart. So here it is, this, 24-year-old older guy steps in the picture to take care of me. Naturally, it's going to be like, oh, okay, so he's going to take care of me. I'm going to jump on that. Not realizing pregnancy, not realizing I'm not ready to be a mom. I'm only 14 years old.
Right.
But God said, you can handle it.
Adnie, I want to ask, I'm sorry to cut you off. So I know you mentioned, about your mom. What was your daddy in the picture when you was enduring pregnancy?
Me. When my mother died, the lady I told you I was living with went to him and said, hey, I'm caring for your daughter. I need you to do your part. His wife stood up, I was there, and said to her, she's old enough to go on Biscayne to sell her body to take care of herself.
Wow.
We won't be helping. And my father was standing there and he didn't even utter a word to say, hey, that's my child.
And you have such a powerful testimony. I can't wait till it unfolds, because there might be someone out there that's going through the very same thing.
Absolutely.
that you've gone through. I mean, teenage pregnancy. I want you to continue that. You had your daughter.
I had my daughter at the age of 14. Then I'm with her dad. And of course, I had my own apartment by the time I was 15. Like, this man had me in an apartment, living a life like I was a wife without a ring. That cooking, cleaning, doing things that grown-up people do and all that other stuff. So by the time I turned 16, there was something in me that was like, you cannot, this is not your life. This person is not for you. That means to an end, like he fulfilled that means, and it was time for me to let it go. And when
so basically you came to that conclusion that this gentleman was no longer the right one for you in 2 years prior into the relationship.
It was too much. He was cheating, stealing my food stamps to give to another woman, stealing my AFDC to give to that same woman.
Right.
It was just so much. And then I don't have a relationship with God, but there's something in me that's just like, this is not the plan. This was never the plan that I had for you. Like that was that thing in there that just says, this is not where your life is supposed to be. So I left him, took my daughter, left him, started high school, and I met my high school sweetheart. And when I met him, I pursued.
Right.
So there's a I'm sorry, y'all.
There's a you have a boldness within you now at this point, because being age of 14, teenage pregnancy, 2 years into this relationship with an older gentleman who is now, you're exposed to so many things as a young teenager, mostly having the mindset of a full-blown adult based on experience. So now you go off to high school, you have a 2-year-old daughter, and now you see a guy that you're interested in. So you have the ability and the confidence to approach him because you have been exposed and have the experience of an adult at an early age where you can confidently tell someone like, hey, I'm interested in you, I like you, where do we go from here? Yeah.
And I think he thought I was joking. But you call it confidence, I call it low self-esteem. Because then the reason I say that is because we know when a guy wants a girl, he's going to chase her. When a girl wants a guy, it's because, why you not giving me the attention that I need? And that's what it was for me. Like, I'm cute, I'm built right, and you not looking at me? Oh no, bruh, that's not going to work for this girl right here. So he sat right in front of me, and every day he saw me in the class, I pursued, I spoke, I did, and till he succumbed to my advances, then finally it was like, okay, we good. I had to go back to my daughter's dad because that means to an end, I needed it. But here it is. I'm with this guy here that I care for, and I'm stuck.
Wow.
Right? So I'm juggling 2 guys at the same time. One of them I absolutely care for, and one of them is just like, look, I need you to pay the bills because I can't afford to right now. So I need I need you to handle this business for me. I had just gotten me a little job at McDonald's. AFDC wasn't enough. Food stamp wasn't enough for me to really say, okay, I could get my own apartment. And what happened was he found out. Amanda's dad found out. And courageous and bold and nasty as I am, he came to my job one day and I looked at him dead in his eye and I said, what are you doing here? Because my boo was here. Like, how dare you come to my job and I got my boo here? Are you serious? This is not what we're going to do. And he looked at me. He said, Adnie, you did this to me? I said, no, you did it to yourself. Because I respected you enough not to do anything, but then you broke that trust. So when he broke that trust, so now I'm in the stage of between 16 and 17 now. So I'm becoming a young adult. I'm having a mind of my own, whereas you're an older man that thought you can control me. And that wasn't going to happen. And when I finally told him, like, it was the end. It was just like, I'm done with this. I can't. So I spoke to my sister. I said, look, I can't be with this man no more. Yeah, I know he's helping me out with this, but I can't. Mentally, I was on that verge of like hating myself because I'm juggling 2 relationships. One of these people I care for, and one of them I just absolutely can't stand. He's just a means to an end for me. And again, y'all notice there was no God in this relationship, right? I'm not talking about God at all. So there was no semblance of God in my life. None. So as I'm going through this journey, finally, the last and final stance for me, I had to go back to my aunt. And I had to go back to my aunt because I ended up staying with her. My sister moved to Boston and I needed a place to stay. He got an efficiency. Amanda's dad got an efficiency for me, his daughter, and his sister, because his sister was living with me. And he moved in, and I'm like, what are you doing? First of all, your sister lives with me, so you don't even need to be here. She was a teenager. Our daughter was, she was about 4 years old by this time. And he moved in. And he started doing things that just my body and my mind couldn't take. And I told his sister, I said, I can't do this. If I stay, I'm gonna kill myself. Right. She looked me in my eyes. I want to say she was about 14. She says, you need to go to your auntie and you need to ask her for forgiveness, even though you didn't do anything wrong. Right. But you know how Haitians are. You got to kiss up to them to get something out of them. Yeah. So I went to her and I just told her, I said, look, I can't do this anymore. He's abusing my body. And I can't take it because I hate myself now. So, once you start hating yourself, that means suicide. That means I will do anything to make it stop. Wow. And his sister saw that. Like, she literally came to me. She was in God, because every night she would go to bed, she would pray. But I wasn't doing that. I didn't. There was no relationship with God, but she did. I remember always seeing her get on her knees before she went to sleep to pray. And when she looked at me, she said, you're about to do something that is so catastrophic. Sorry. You can't do this anymore. I need you to go to your auntie. And this is a teenager. She's 14? And she says, you need to go to your aunt, ask your aunt for forgiveness and move in with her. So I went back to my aunt. I told my aunt what was happening. And my aunt was like, what? Like, his sister and your daughter are with you. You're caring for them. And he's doing this? And she was like, okay. So she had her stipulations. I agreed to them, but it wasn't like I was going to do them because I'm not a snitch. But I was going to do anything that I could to get out of that situation with this person because he made me hate myself. So I moved back in with my aunt, and this is how I am introduced to voodooism. Because the man that she was with was a voodoo priest. So we had all sorts of people coming into that house. And guess who used to go and translate for the spirit? This young lady right here. I translated for the Hispanics. I translated for the Jamaicans. I translated for the Americans that came to do work there. I saw so much stuff. I was in a house that dealt with nothing but demonic forces. Right? But there was still something in me that knew this is not what my life, this was not for me. This is not what my life needed to be a part of. And God knew that. And that's something I really want our listeners to understand. You get yourself in a situation, but God will always put this hunger in you that you don't understand.
Right.
Okay. And that hunger, it was just like, even though I translated, I just knew that there was something that was not right about that part of my life.
Right.
Because voodooism, dealing with demonic spirits and going to sleep and seeing things in the house and hearing, these voices whispering in your ears. And then the things I didn't even share was the molestation that happened because of it. Because here it is, this person has a voodoo spirit in their head, or how they I don't know how to say it in English. It's like they embody the spirit.
In Creole, it's
like
they're possessed.
You'll get loi.
Yeah,
right?
They're possessed. That's called a spiritual possession.
Yeah, they call the spiritual possession. Mm-hmm. And I had a boyfriend that was a spirit.
Yeah, that's true.
That's crazy.
I'm laughing because I sit back and I'm like, wow. And it was funny because I'm like, there was a spirit that I had a boyfriend of that would feel on me, and it was disgusting. Like this person was old enough to be my granddaddy.
Right.
And they utilized that to molest, to touch, and to feel in areas and to take the innocence.
Absolutely.
There was some innocence in me, even though, I had already had a child. There was some innocence. And you know what? I just skipped over that. That stuff happened before I had the baby.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. That stuff happened before I had the baby.
Wow. So the demonic, you dwelling in a demonic atmosphere, coming against this high priest, supposedly for the enemy, was taking advantage of your innocence, which led to depression, suicidal, led to a lot of hurt, betrayal, and of course, to teenage pregnancy. And so where significantly do you see God stepping in? When did you realize that God's hand was in the midst of all of those trying times? Where did you honestly see the hand of God come in?
Okay. We the lady I was living with this year when I was at Hope, her name, we call her Auntie Anna. She's my mom's cousin. She used to invite us to church. She's Baptist. And I remember going to a Haitian church with her. As you're a teenager, so you go, whatever. And there was just this hunger. There's this desire. There's this hunger that's in me that says, okay, there's something bigger than this. Didn't pay attention to it. Then I grow up and I meet a handsome, light-skinned Puerto Rican guy with these beautiful brown eyes.
Oh boy!
It never seems
never
seems to fail.
Never fails. Yeah, every time you're trying to get close to God, they go to imitation. They go to fake.
Yeah, seems to be so appealing, right?
Yeah.
So I hooked up with this guy, and I bust the windows out his car. When I bust the windows out of his car, there was anger in me. So there's that anger that you black out, like you taste blood in your mouth. You're just you're no longer human. There's something that took over, and it's not you. It's just complete rage. And when I felt that rage, I literally said, if you exist, you have to show me, because there has to be something bigger than this. There's no way that I can ever allow myself to get this angry, because it wasn't anger. It was rage. It was, if this man was in front of me, I would have taken his life type rage. And that's when I started searching for God for myself. Like, even though I went to the Baptist church or whatever, there was still that playing around. And then finally I get in a relationship with a man that cheats on me with some ugly girl, and I get mad.
Wow.
Right.
So Adnie, before you talk about, him cheating on you and, getting with that girl, I know this podcast is called Called by God. I know somewhere along the way, God was calling you, because that's what he does. God just don't wait to the point where you get, young adult and just call you.
Right.
Somewhere along the line, whether or not you were 7, God was calling you, but you probably just answered it, or you hung up, or you just didn't answer at all.
I didn't answer at all.
Could you share some of the signs that he gave you along the way where he was calling you and you was pretty much pressing ignore? You know how we do when those bill collectors call, we press ignore. So share that with us before you get into, that dude that cheated on you.
The first time I knew God was calling me, I got into a car accident with the lady I was telling you guys about. The car flipped with us on 95. Her husband was high on weed. And I walked away from the car unscathed. Like, when people came to the car, they was like, there's a child in this car. I think I was 10 years old. And I knew then that there was a protection. There was a call on me, right? And then you get older. When I had my daughter at 14 and I wanted to abort her, and I went into that abortion clinic, and that lady looked at me and said, "You're too young to have an abortion. We're not going to do it." And there was a young lady that walks in that looks younger than me, and they take her to the back. That was my call. That was one of my callings, that God was literally saying to me, you are a vessel. I didn't know then that was him calling me, right? But everything lines up, from the loss of my mother, the beatings, all of those were him calling me. It's just a matter of understanding and having the proper person to say, hey, be like Samuel, open your eyes, open your ears and hear, or say, here I am, Lord, I'm listening. There was never that type of mentor or even spiritual advisor to say, pay attention to what God is doing. You may be going through all of these things. It's because he's leading you to where he needs you to be. But I knew from the loss of my mother, and I tell people this today, I knew God took my mother because I would be no good to him if my mother was alive. Because I was spoiled. And
it really is.
I was spoiled. And I'll say that again. Everything I wanted, my mother gave to me. I didn't have to work for anything. Even as a child, even if she was here today, I knew I wouldn't have to work for anything. Wow. And God knew if my mother was here, I would be no good to him in the ministry.
Where does the surrender comes in?
Surrender.
You're dealing with so many trials and tribulations early on in life. Dealing with your aunt, and these are individuals who are actually close to you.
Yeah.
We're not talking about friends and coworkers. We're talking about close relatives and distant relatives, friends of relatives in your close proximity. Where does serenity come in? Where God say, you know what? I'm calling you, take heed. I need you to surrender.
The surrender happened, like I was sharing with you all, when Devon's dad, Devon wasn't here yet. This was just in the beginning of our stages of our relationship, when he cheated. And there was this, it was the definite, I can't do this anymore. There is more to this life.
Oh yeah, that's
than
it.
Just this.
That's
like hopping from bed to bed, or, dealing with this dude and that dude.
Yes.
That there was that, this is it. I can't.
That sounds about
I had
right,
enough. Unfortunately,
right. Enough is enough. I'm done. Throw your hands up.
And you know what we're going to do, Adnie? We have to bring you back on.
Okay.
Yes, definitely.
We got to have a part 2. You know what we're going to do? We're going to bring her back on, and we want her to go dive deep into her transition of being a Christian. Yeah. So Adnie, I want to give you, where can the world reach you, in other words?
Okay. So I am Adnie Gaudin on Facebook, and on Instagram, it's Adnie.Gaudin. On Instagram, I'm going to change it to the Emerging Phynix. And on our next podcast, I'll definitely let you all know what that is about. But that is going to be my brand, the Emergent Phynix, because a lot of times we forget we have to get burned in order to get born in the ashes. So that's literally what my brand is about.
It's a great analogy.
All right, world. Well, Called by God podcast. Thank you for joining us. Thanks for listening. And remember, if you want to support what we do, then subscribe, share, and leave a review on iTunes. And that's all for now. But I'll see you in the next episode. Be blessed. Wait, there's more. What if today was your last day on earth? Would you be ready to meet your Maker? Well, Jesus Christ has given us the good news. He told his disciples in Mark 16:15-16, and he said to them, "Go into all the world and preach the gospel to every creature. He who believes and is baptized will be saved, but he who does not believe will be condemned." Jesus Christ has instructed his children to share and preach the gospel, which is the good news, which means that Jesus Christ came and that he was sacrificed, he was buried, and he rose on the third day. By believing and by repenting and confessing and being baptized, you will be saved. So it is your choice. Jesus Christ will not force you. You've heard the message, you heard personal testimonies, but this is your opportunity to give your life to Christ. Don't wait until tomorrow, because tomorrow is not promised. So I hope you submit to the will of God and give your soul to Christ. Be blessed.